Hello, and welcome to my off-grid cabin deep in the Maine woods. Those of you who've been following my videos have gotten glimpses of my cabin in bits and pieces as I go about my daily life. But today, I'd like to welcome you into my home for a proper tour. So come on in and I'll show you around. This is my hope for all my guests. My cabin is one big room, 14 by 21 feet, open to the roof. It feels surprisingly spacious for such small dimensions. Here's the view from the other end of the room. You can see I have a loft over the front porch, which provides essential storage for supplies to get me through the long winter months when the road is closed by snow and I can only travel in or out on foot. My loft provides a bird's eye view of the cabin. Because this is a virtual visit, I get to play with time. I think my cabin is coziest at night by the light of the fire and the propane and oil lamps, so I'm going to switch from day to night. I should clarify that I've played a bit with the seasons too. The introductory photo that showed snow blanketing the ground around my cabin, I took that a while back. Now, in mid-April, most of the snow around my cabin is gone. That being said, winter always has a last gasp. Wintry mix is in the forecast. Here's the view from the loft, looking toward my bedroom space at the back of the cabin and my dining area to the right. Directly below me is what I think of as my living room, the corner where my wood stove sits. And to my left is my kitchen area. There's no bathroom. I use an outhouse instead. Now let's head back down for a closer look. Here's my kitchen, which has a propane cook stove. This is as close as I come to running water. As some of you have seen in previous videos, I have a hand pump roughly 300 feet from my cabin. I pump the water into pails, which I then carry, one in each hand, back to the cabin, where I fill the urn you see here. As some of you know, my sink drain was theoretically supposed to function all winter. The man who built my cabin omitted the usual U-shaped pipe under the sink, so the water would flow directly down into gray water chambers buried behind my cabin. He thought that would keep the pipe from freezing. But, to my dismay, it turned out that when it gets cold enough, for long enough, the entire gray water system freezes solid. This year, it happened at the end of January, and I've been using this pot to collect wastewater ever since. I dump the water outside when the pot is full. I'm thinking the gray water chambers are nearly thawed by now, and I'll try out the drain sometime this week. Hope it works. These are the buckets I use to haul water from my pump to my cabin. They're stainless steel pails designed for milking cows by hand. They're used by the Amish, and the two of them together weigh almost 50 pounds when full. Lots of good upper body exercise for me. Now, let's move on to my bedroom. I have a double-on-double bunk bed. The frame is made of pine, but the slats are strong oak, meaning the bed will hold 2 adults on top as well as 2 on the bottom. When I'm here alone, I sleep on top. It keeps me warmer as my fire dies down overnight because heat rises. And I use the bottom bunk as office storage for my papers and camera equipment. When I have guests, the bottom bunk provides sleeping space. Because I don't have a lot of room, each object in my cabin is carefully chosen. either because it's vital for my life out here or because it has deep personal meaning. The object at the right of my dresser is a work of indigenous art. Here's a better look. It's a traditional birch bark moose call made by Penobscot elder Butch Phillips. He passed on last year, and I'm very grateful for this beautiful piece. It's a daily reminder that my cabin is in the homeland of the Penobscot Nation. I do not truly own this land where I live, though I strive to be the best steward I can. Moving on to more mundane matters, my cabin has a closet. That may not seem particularly noteworthy, but it's a feature typically lacking in older cabins. I think of my lifestyle here as fairly minimalist by modern standards, but I know I still have far more belongings than early settlers would have had. My dining table has hosted many a festive meal over the years. This photo shows my mother Deanie at our Thanksgiving feast in 2011 when she was 86 years old. We celebrated 5 Thanksgiving holidays here before she passed in 2014. As many of you know, my wood stove is the warm heart of my home. To me, sitting in my rocker on a cold winter night by my wood fire is one of the greatest pleasures on earth. My cabin may not have much in the way of conventional modern amenities, but it offers an abundance of what I like to call alternative luxuries, cozy comforts in a peaceful, breathtakingly beautiful natural setting. I keep the tools I use to maintain my fire right next to my rocker. I'm especially fond of my little bellows. It's great for coaxing damp, reluctant wood to burn. And I have my wood rack, plus multiple forms of kindling within easy reach. I collect loose birch bark from the trees around my cabin. It's a great fire starter. You may have noticed several framed images above my wood stove in the view from the loft. All of them have special meaning for me. This is a watercolor painted by a dear friend from Boston, Richard Cann. It's based on this photo, which I took on the eve of the summer solstice in 2014. I was sitting on the summit of Moxie Bald Mountain on Maine's Appalachian Trail, watching the sun set over Mosquito Mountain to the west. I used the photo for that year's Christmas card, and I sent one to my friend Richard. Richard made a watercolor from the photo, and he painted me into the picture. There I am, sitting at the right. I hung Richard's painting of me watching the sun set on the eve of the summer solstice next to a photo I took of Mother Deanie watching the sun rise from Pemaquid Point on the Maine coast on the morning before the summer solstice, exactly 1 year earlier. It turned out to be the last sunrise we watched together. Mother Deanie and I chose this land and planned the cabin together, and we enjoyed it together for 5 years. Deanie's ashes are scattered nearby at a point along our shore where we savored many a sunset. I feel her loving spirit strongly when I'm here. This is one more memento of our shared adventures, hanging in the front window. This dragonfly was made by a friend who used to own a small lodge at the other end of the lake. Deanie and I went there for dinner, following an afternoon of moose watching in our tandem canoe, and we browsed the stained glass our friend put on display in the dining room. We both felt the dragonfly belonged here. This brings us full circle in our tour of the cabin. I will always be grateful that my path led me to this home in the Maine woods. Thank you very much for joining me here today.